you came from a very educated background.
When you're born into a family of doctors, there is that educational pressure, at least.
Expectation.
I
got used to it.
A bunch of the doctor friends sit down with me and they told me that, hey, you'll have to become a doctor. Now, the thing is, I don't know why my head works this way, but if someone tells me I have to do something, then I don't feel like doing it.
You have an older sister?
Yeah. Even today, I think she's the one person whose validation as well as opinion I seek much more than anyone else.
You said, gave the bird to everyone who said, I don't need to be normal.
Also, behind the shields, that's where the alcohol and the pot was going on.
Okay.
It's something I regret on some level because
Tell me a little bit about the start.
I truly believe, and this is based on all the people I work with at this point, we consciously hire from outside of Mumbai.
Interesting.
Because we've noted that the hunger in tier 2 cities is a lot more.
So you are what you are when you started.
I hope.
Hey guys, Dr. Nene here. I practice as a cardiothoracic, vascular, and general surgeon, and I'm now a health tech innovator who wants to improve lifespans and lifestyles. So stay healthy, stay curious, and keep watching. Welcome to the channel, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be here, sir.
So let's start. You are phenomenally gifted as a sutradhar, as a narrator, as a vlog star. You've been accoladed by the Prime Minister, the Chief Minister, but more than that, you've sat down with the biggest in Bollywood, in politics, in sports, and there's no holds barred. And so the remarkable thing for me as I look through the litany of work that you've done, you really know how to tell a story and how to bring out a story from someone. And at the same time, make them feel good about what they're doing. I know because I was in that hot seat not too long ago, and it was a lot of fun. And I look forward to more of those together on both of our channels. But let's reverse a little bit. Now, your story is very interesting. You kind of come from the same roots in that your mom and dad were both doctors, and your sister's a doctor, and you're an engineer. and as you came up, you came from a very educated background, and there were some points in there which were dark. I read about some of them. You've commented on them before. Tell me a little bit about what brought you to the front, because you were on a path to do the standard Indian sort of thing, right? Doctor, engineer, kind of like what I was. And you kind of struggled at one point with, different things. I can talk about it, substances, all that. Every single one of us have faced that.
No holds barred.
Tell me a little bit about the start and what your parents kind of wanted you to do. Then how did it kind of change a little bit? And how did it lead to darkness? And then from there, light.
Okay, so again, from a medical family, I think you'd know what I'm talking about when I say that when you're born into a family of doctors, there is that educational pressure, at least.
Expectation.
So I remember during my 10th grade exams, which is a very big deal in India, like your ICSE, SSE, all that. They actually made a bunch of their doctor friends sit down with me, and they told me that, hey, you'll have to become a doctor. Now, the thing is, I don't know why my head works this way, but if someone tells me I have to do something, then I don't feel like doing it. So I told them, now I'll do anything except for medicine. But the caveat here is that at least at that point, I had an innate fear of blood, which I don't know if you empathize with, because at this...
So my dad was like that. And that's why I became an engineer instead of a doctor. I got used to it. And so it's very uncomfortable initially. I think it's a thought more than the view. But, tell me a little bit about that. Were you the rebel growing up? Were you the oldest in your family?
I was the younger sibling.
Okay. You have an older sister?
Yeah, and she was like the school topper, type A student in school. So I was known as her brother in school. But she's been like the biggest support throughout my life, right from the time we were kids.
And what's the age difference?
She's 3 years older.
Okay.
And she really handled me when I was in my wild child phase growing up.
Got it.
Supported me when my career started off. And my parents couldn't wrap their head around what I was doing. And I don't blame them for that. There's a generation gap
100%.
there. So even today, I think she's the one person whose validation as well as opinion I seek much more than anyone else.
And I sort of feel the same way with my sister. The parents are kind of separated because they grew up in a different world almost. Now, with you coming along, what was the crowd you were in? Where did you grow up, in Mumbai?
Yeah, so I grew up in a suburb called Wadala, which is right next to Dadar, where I think your family is from.
Yeah, my
Hindu
family was
colony.
from Dadar, Hindu Colony, and Shivaji Park.
Yeah, it's like one particular area, and what's beautiful about that particular neighborhood in Bombay is that you get to see a lot of educated classes, and you get to grow up alongside a lot of blue collar workers
Very
and their
interesting,
kids.
but very conservative.
Yeah, very conservative. Also, I mean, at least my generation of people who grew up there were very exposed to the West because all our friends were from Bandra or South Bombay. So you grew up having access to those people as well, but you also grew up with access to a lot of the blue collar folk, and you really get to understand Mumbai for everything that it contains. Like I remember in my teenage, when you start becoming a little rebellious, I've done some very dangerous things as well.
Like what?
Like, I've spoken about this on the channel. Like, I had a phase with at one point. So the way, can we talk about it on this?
110%.
Okay. I think, honestly, it's not something I recommend, obviously, to people. This is not...
Why? I don't know. It's interesting because in the US, they're going through that and it's becoming legalized everywhere.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that in a little while because it's an interesting comment and question. It's not legal here, and yet the Hindu aesthetics have been using it for 4,000 years, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of a hypocrisy, if you will. But at the same time, in the US and in Europe now, it's becoming, and we used to use it for our patients. So we'll talk about that. But so you were a wild child and a high child.
Yeah. I found the wrong things in life pretty early.
Yeah. And was that because of the school you went to? Because it was a higher end school and a lot of the kids were doing that?
So I went to the Dhirubhai Ambani International School. And I really feel like that school has given me everything that I needed for my career.
That's one of the foremost schools
in the world.
In the world, I would agree.
So the thing is, the moment you say that you're from that school, everyone assumes that you grew up very, very rich. But the truth is, most of that school was a lot of middle class and upper middle class kids, along with the film stars as kids and like the industrialists as kids. And all the middle class and upper middle class kids as parents were working their socks off to put all their kids through school.
Got it.
So I was somewhere in that bracket. And what ends up happening is when you're in that school surrounded by people who are from, the top layer of society, it plants a seed of ambition in you as well. Like you realize that, okay, by the time you have kids, you'd want to give them an even bigger life. So that's one aspect of going to that particular school. The other aspect is the kind of education you get. It's not just academic. Like I took up martial arts there. You learn your basics of sport. You learn communication skills very intensely. That's something they focus on.
And let me ask you something. It seems to me like when I used to come here from the US, the schools like King George's and all that in Dadar, they were fairly rote, right? Now all of a sudden there's this upswing of international schools, and it seems like, it's almost coming full circle that everyone wanted to send their kids abroad for college. Now all of a sudden the India story is picking up. But do you see that everywhere in the people you're hiring or working with, that they're all getting international grade educations? And when I say international, I'm not talking about Hindi medium, Marathi medium. I'm talking about all encompassing, like you're talking about, that they're getting exposure and also getting vision as to what's possible.
Yeah. So, I mean, I truly believe, and this is based on all the people I work with at this point, we consciously hire from outside of Mumbai. Because we've noted that like the hunger in tier 2 cities is a lot more. Even if we're hiring kids from Mumbai, we'll ensure that they're from the suburbs outside, like Dombivli, Vasai, Virar, these places. Because there's just more grit in those suburbs. What we've noticed is that they are exposed to information, they're exposed to ambition. They may not be necessarily exposed to communication skills and design thinking. So that's what we end up bringing through the organization. I do believe that most of Indian education is based on rote learning. And there was a long phase in my life where I looked down upon that aspect. But when I went through engineering college, which is also based on rote learning in India, most engineering colleges in our country, you're not taught engineering the way it should be taught, but you're put through like a very, very grueling rote learning process. It challenges your sense of determination and how many hours you're willing to put in. I feel if you're able to actually rote learn that huge amount of information that you're supposed to rote learn in medical college or engineering college, it really sets you up for life in terms of a grind.
So it sort of trains your brain.
Yeah, it puts you through a lot. And then at 22, 23, it's up to you in terms of how willing you are to break out of the pack through other skills. Like, are you willing to learn sales skills? Are you willing to learn better communication?
So really, would you say that it's not what you learn, it's how you learn it and how you train your brain to assimilate knowledge?
Yeah, I basically like mindset.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I see that.
You got to be hungry. And I love what you're saying, that you're actually going to people who are gritty, who are not afraid to open a book and do stuff. Because a lot of times when you hand stuff to people, they take it for granted.
Yeah.
And we've been very purposeful with our children in making sure they not only appreciate everything, but more than that, think about beyond. And I think this is it. Now, let's back up a little bit. You were a pothead. And then you kind of went into a little bit of darkness. I don't know what that phase was. And you're not alone. I mean, we've all kind of seen this at one time or another in our careers or lives where we kind of can't figure out why. Right? You see everything around you, your expectations of everyone is high. And even if you're on your course, but what was it for you? I mean, when did the eureka and the why come about?
Yeah. Can we back up a little bit?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
So, age 16, you begin your science coaching to get into engineering college.
Yeah.
And that's also pretty grueling. It's rote learning as well as logical thinking. I got into engineering college with like good marks. I was at the top of my class. And in India, when you're growing up, your parents will tell you, study till the 10th grade. And then, after that, it's easy. And then once you hit the 11th grade, they tell you study till the 12th grade and then it's easy.
So one more carrot after the next carrot.
So when I was in engineering college, I was in this mindset of like chilling and just enjoying myself. But then I was told that, you know what, study till age 22 and then it's easy.
Okay.
That was the final carrot, by the way. But coming back to the first semester in engineering college, I got extremely disenchanted with like the way engineering was taught. Again, not blaming anyone.
Well, I won't name any names, but did you
fine.
go to school in Mumbai or?
Yeah, Mumbai University has a bunch of colleges under their wing. I was in a college called DJ Sangvi. I didn't enjoy going to DJ Sangvi while I was there, but in retrospect, I've realized that even the 4 years in DJ Sangvi have given me everything, including my co-founders, including a sense of business.
So it was really the people as well as the experience.
There were some incredible professors as well, some of whom I'm in touch with even now. The college was actually a very good college. They provided everything that you needed. It was more about this whole angle of you can't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. So I wasn't that kid who was willing to...
So it was really the format that it was set in stone.
Yeah.
And they didn't allow you to be yourself.
Yeah, I think you're exposed to too many kids who are truly, who want to kind of grow in the traditional way. And not all the kids, but most of them will end up looking down upon one of the rebel kids. So then the backbenchers, the rebel kids get together and form their, you've seen
Gangs,
those Roman
gully boys.
soldiers, with like the shields in all directions.
Yeah.
So in every class of like 80, there would be like 10 guys, and it's mostly guys, barely any girls in engineering college.
Yeah.
Who just get together and protect each other.
And do you think, like, what year was that? Like 10 years, 20 years?
2011.
So 2011, you're talking 23 years ago, right?
13 years.
13 years ago. How much has changed between then and now? Do you think, because the University of YouTube is always open, right? And people are continuously learning. I know with my two guys, it's almost as if their grades don't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Because the jobs they're getting and the things they're doing is determined by what they can do.
Yeah.
And even with you, when we're going to fast forward to that in a little bit, your real jadoo came much later. And so you were in your engineering school, you made your friends, you locked your shields, and you said, gave the bird to everyone who said, I don't need to be normal.
Yeah.
Right?
But also behind the shields, that's where the alcohol and the pot was going on.
Okay. And why do you think that was there? Was it to soothe? Was it to kind of take some stress out of it?
I think it was partially just the experience of it, because you're made to work really, really hard in your 10th grade and your 11th and 12th in India.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of a release that happens in the first year of engineering. But also it was definitely to escape from life, because very soon within like the first 6 months of engineering college, I realized that I won't be able to go down the traditional path, but I'm going to have to face 4 years of this.
That's interesting.
So I was definitely
and you're not alone. In college, my parents are teetotalers and, very conservative. And then when I went to college in the Midwest, people drank like fish, did everything. And I was part of a fraternity. And I'll tell you, it shaped who I was to some degree. And these guys weren't backbenchers. It was a mix. But I agree with what you're saying, that it changed the way you behaved. It gave you a depth, and it kind of also took away some of the hindrances. As far as alcohol and all that, we all got plowed once in a while, right? But eventually, with you and with me, we kind of came around as the real world set in.
Yeah.
So when did that happen?
So again, 4 years of college was fueled by substance abuse, honestly. And it's something I regret on some level, because I feel like...
Was this escape, like journeys, or was this just pacifying kind of the stress and making you feel better? Because I'm telling you, all of us have gone there at times in our life where we're just not sure. We don't know why we're doing this.
So in my first semester, I flunked. Like I failed, and I'd never failed. I was a great student till like the 12th grade. That was a big slap on my face. I was going through some personal life stuff as well. I had a bit of a breakup. So then all this frustration of failing, being looked down upon, because the society for you at that point is your classroom.
Yes.
So from being the topper in the class, you're at the bottom.
Yes.
People doing these commentaries on you, like, oh, he's got into drugs, which wasn't true at that time.
Yes.
So, but it was just too much to take for those 4 years. All I knew is that I wanted those 4 years to get done quickly. I knew that I'll plow my way back to the top of the class. I didn't reach the top, but I reached near the top. And then right after I failed in my first sem, I started lifting weights, again, as a form of coping with frustration. That began this like fitness journey.
So were you, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Were you a sports guy in earlier years?
It
seems like you've always played.
Yeah, I've been a martial artist like while growing up.
What form?
Judo.
Oh, very nice.
I went like pretty far in judo. I became
Very
Bombay
nice.
champ and
Serious?
everything. Yeah.
Wow.
And
like
it's
7th degree black belt or something?
no. I stopped at brown because of injuries, which is like one below black in judo. But gave my exams and everything.
And
like
did you compete nationally or anything?
I competed on a state level.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I reached, I reached like up till the state, and there it gets like really tough, honestly.
100%.
India's a very competitive.
And judo's big here.
Yeah.
I mean, I've met a lot of the godfathers of judo, and it's a great sport in terms of staying in shape. Any of the martial arts are.
Yeah. I think it really sets you up for life. Any martial art, this is what I've noticed with all my friends who took their martial arts seriously while they were growing up. There's a sense of discipline that gets set throughout your life.
100%.
So even during this pothead phase and the alcohol phase, I never let my fitness go.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Which is kind of unusual in that you've done both sides of it. So you really weren't an out and out kind of crazy partier. What you were is self-medicating almost.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, you were using endorphins from your workouts to kind of drive your brain, which to me is interesting because you had the discipline side figured out. So I think there's some real genius going on here. It's just you couldn't figure out your path, it seems like.
So, I mean, like in engineering college, all I knew is that I really wanted to go far in life. Again, because I grew up around...
What did you want to do? What was your, I mean, originally, and the problem is, you know how it is, parents, will sit there and say, you got to do this, that, and the other. In your family, probably all doctors, they wanted you to be the same. And that's not unusual. My dad was an engineer and saw doctors were doing much better, so he wanted me to be a doctor. Yeah. And I think with me and with my children, what I've learned is let them be. Let them figure it out. And they, unfortunately, will learn and watch you. So you got to be very careful. This is a life lesson for you and me. We're like brothers. And the bottom line is, if you learn nothing from me, learn the fact that people are always watching, even non-family and non-friends, because you're an influencer. And so we're all watching each other and seeing what's there. We'll come to that in a little bit. So judo you were doing, and you got to the brown belt. I did taekwondo, and we got to the blue blacks. Wow. And then I broke my arm too and got a plate and 5 screws, and that ended my career in there. And I did it with the whole family, by the way. And it was, just as you said, something that bonded us. Yeah. And so I appreciate where you're coming from. And what did you want to do? What did you want to study? What was your original intent?
When I was growing up, I wanted to become a film director. Wow. Like I wanted to get into the world of films to be able to tell stories. And in my 10th and 11th and 12th, I was told by a lot of my relatives that you won't be able to get into the film industry because you need to know people from the film industry to break through, which is not true, which I understand now because I'm kind of adjacent to it.
I mean, if you have talent, it'll happen. It's harder. Yeah. I mean, my wife went through the same, right? And she got discovered, but she was kind of parallel paths, and it sort of happened. In your case, you went head on. And to be honest, it was almost parallel path too. For you, as we'll discover.
Yeah. I did have an inclination towards fame. So I knew I wanted to be famous within whatever I do. So I kind of killed off that film direction dream by the time engineering college started, which also led me to the substance abuse.
What would you say to, so was that a downer for you?
Yes.
I mean, is this something, and I can't imagine what your parents would say. I know what mine would have said. I mean, what were they saying? Did you ever share this with them?
About films?
Film direction, yeah.
They, again, couldn't wrap their head around it, but...
How about your sister?
She knew that I'll end up making it because between the two of us, I think I was more of the guy who's out on the street, getting to...
Crazy stuff.
Yeah, doing things. Yeah. So she knew I'll figure out my way. So she was always encouraging, but... Like your parents are always a little bit cautious, especially if they come from science backgrounds themselves.
Not just science, but middle class backgrounds.
Yeah.
They're worried that if we fail, you can't sit on my couch all day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
At least in my case, probably in yours too, that they need to have some way to support themselves. They have to have some dignity so they'll get married to the right person, blah, 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 blah. And I don't know that for you and me that really matters because we want to do what we love. And for your audience, what would you say? I mean, this was something very interesting that your dream was to become that director, the film director, and you live in Bollywood.
Yeah.
So you must have known people.
Yeah. I think now when I look back at like the way my career's panned out within YouTube, the business aspect of things, I've landed up exactly where I wanted to land up when I was a child. I just didn't know how to articulate that when I was a child, which is why I said film director. But in truth, I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to kind of be famous.
And I could still see you, judging by what I saw, do the original journey.
Yeah, perhaps.
Very effectively. And it's almost like the universe has a plan, right?
That's the one dream that's remaining right now. But I'll take up film direction once I'm done with a certain...
So this is something for all of you guys. Just remember this moment here because we'll bring it up again and I'll hook you up with some people and we'll see what we can get done. Yeah. But the bottom line is the world needs good storytellers.
Yeah.
And it needs people who actually can walk through your soul and imagine what could happen because your story so far is very interesting. Yeah. So now you were in engineering, you were depressed because you couldn't do what you wanted to do and were grinding. And I share this journey because there were times, where I was like, why the hell am I doing this? Why am I waking up at 4:30 every morning, competing against all these people and trying to get things done when this isn't really all that I can do or what I want to do, right? So what did you do then?
Got very deep into my fitness aspect as well. Got through engineering college, but I became a certified fitness coach. Huh. So I did from a local college and everything. I learned fitness much more deeply. And technically, I had that certificate.
So you trained people
Not during college.
after
Yeah, I did a bunch of internships in college, which was a great decision.
internships in.
I was working as a mergers and acquisitions
Get out.
intern
Serious?
at Ernst and Young.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I learned about the world of finance
So you did a little business on the side.
just to tick it off my list, to figure what I don't want to do.
100%.
But it gave me a lot of perspective. When I graduated from engineering college, my first, again, it was pretty much an internship. It was in a relative's engineering factory in Saginaga.
Oh.
Yeah. So I went there and again was surrounded by a lot of blue collar personnel and figured how they look at life, figured how that particular business is run. And that's what led me to thinking about, maybe I should be trying to create a business myself. I have a Masi who I opened up to and I told her that, I probably...
Now, you don't come from a business family.
No.
Which is the interesting part. Nor do I. And our lineage, I would suspect, is not pro-business.
Yeah, but
maybe you had someone in the family who did business. That was your Masi, it sounds like.
So my mom's side of the family is a bunch of engineers who run engineering businesses.
Ah, okay.
So there is some genes in the
in the blood.
Yeah, in the blood, but it wasn't something I visualized myself doing until I spoke to my Masi, who basically made me sit down. She said, write your strengths down on paper and try figuring out what kind of business you can create through this. So I wrote down fitness because I was certified. I wrote down communication skills and I wrote down marketing because that's what I'd done through college as well.
Amazing.
And she told me that, okay, have you considered doing some kind of a fitness coaching as a service, but at scale? So I said, okay, maybe I can try that. And to actually begin that business journey, I drew out like a very elaborate UI UX on paper without knowing I'm drawing out a UI UX of an app which would become an Uber for fitness coaches. That became like kind of the goal that, okay, now in my first year of freedom after engineering college, this is what I should be doing. And right when I started that journey, my father made me sit down. And he told me that, you know what, the money that you're earning from this engineering factory, you're going to have to figure out how to increase your own salary because I'm stopping your pocket money.
Ooh.
Yeah. And you'll be able to live in my house, but food...
This sounds
money,
very familiar, right?
Yeah.
They're cutting the purse strings, the umbilical cord.
Yeah. But I mean,
what was their worry? Because you were no longer the rebel. You had your days in college, fine, all of us do. But now you're actually a little more focused, sounds like. And your Masi must have talked to them.
Yeah. So I was making a small amount of money from that internship. This is like literally right out of engineering college. So I think if my exams got done on the 1st of June, my internship began on the 10th of June. And people usually don't begin until like 3-4 months after
100%.
that. So I'd given myself that window of 3 months to just figure my next steps, but I hadn't sat for any of our job placements in engineering college because I knew that I don't want to end up being a coder. That's not my natural skill set. And I also knew that I'll be able to figure out something. I'll be able to look for a job myself, maybe in media, etc. So my dad made me sit down. He said that, okay, you've not sat for placements. It's fine. You're going to have to figure out something. So from the following month, he was going to stop providing for me.
Wow.
But when he told me that, I kind of, it was a bit of a positive moment for me because it was like a challenge that was thrown my way and I enjoyed like kind of being in that position. So
what do you think about that tough love position?
Best thing that my father's done for me.
So this is one learning which I think all of us have had, and I've gone back and forth with this, and we've been very fortunate. You know, the boys are amazing, but it's tough because you just don't know. And I think kids today are much smarter than we were, right? And they have many more options.
Yeah.
Right. So you got the tough love and you actually reacted to it very favorably by being positive and saying, he trusts me enough that I can go and do something.
Yeah.
So what did you do?
So I also had that paper given to me by my Masi with like fitness,
Very nice.
communication skills, marketing.
So she did the aptitude test and sort of placed
Yeah.
your brain on the path.
Yeah, it's kind of like the universe wanted all these events to come together. Parallelly, my dad's telling me that, okay, you know, you'll have to figure out how to earn your own money. I woke up the next day feeling like a little self-confident, honestly. I still live in Vadala. So I took a train. I went to Bandra, which is about 3-4 stations away.
Yep.
Went out to Carter Road. And I began going up to random groups of people
Yeah.
and saying that, hey, you know what, you're fit. I'll be able to make you fitter. I'm a certified professional.
So you did a little sales
Yeah.
and marketing.
Yeah, and it worked.
Wow.
So I closed 3-4 clients on that day.
That's
itself.
guts, bro.
Yeah. I mean, the worst that could happen was someone just brushing you off, which happened a lot. But I feel that sense of being brushed off is very important because it makes you tough for the journey.
And I imagine you look the part. You're very fit.
Yeah.
You're well coiffed. You're not someone who's coming in dingy, right? Yeah. And someone would believe you. I would believe you. If you said, look, I can make you fitter, I would sign up.
Yeah.
Right?
I think, honestly, this is where privilege also plays a role.
Sure.
Like when you've gone through schooling, like the kind of schooling I went through, you are taught sales indirectly. You're taught how to conduct yourself in a room. And as long as you're able to take yourself out on the street and deal with, I think that's what Mumbai gives you. The street also teaches you a lot.
Yes.
Them at age 16, 17 into like deep into Dharavi and seen like the local underworld of Dharavi as well. So I knew how to conduct myself out on the street.
That's
as
amazing.
well as like in the best rooms, you know, with people like yourself. So
Yeah.
it gives you a little bit of an edge.
I'll tell you a little secret.
Yeah.
I've done my share of interesting dealings. And in college, there were a lot of different spectrums. And there were people like this. And you had to, you know, just take it all in. And they remain my friends. In some cases, everything turned out fine. In other cases, it didn't. But in the end, I learned a lot. And certainly wasn't something along the path because, you know, there was a period in my life, just like yours, where I questioned everything. I'm like, why am I doing this? Why can't I do something else? And I didn't realize until much later. And you took that turn very early and it ended up being the right turn. And for me, I did it. My turn was okay. And I don't look back and regret anything. I wouldn't have married my wife had I not done that turn. But then afterwards, she allowed me and the universe allowed me to turn elsewhere. Back to you, though, this became interesting. So your Masi gave you these things. You had the guts, the balls to go out and talk to people and cold call on an ultimate level in their face. And granted, Carter Road's not Dharavi or it's not like, you know, the inside of a slum, but that's your audience. That's your TG. So you knew how to select people.
While I was doing that, cops came up to me and they said, who's given you permission to do it? So to be able to handle the cops as well as the people you're actually selling to, I think that was the key.
And what did you do? Train them as well?
There's a way to talk to police personnel.
Ani tu Marathi boltos?
No.
So that's the key in Mumbai at least.
But you crack jokes. You bring in the brotherly humor. You know, there is.
So
there
you
is
charm
some
their
techniques.
socks off. You're good at that.
Yeah, which was again a God-gifted skill from back then. But this phase was very important. So
you were in your 20s about this time.
I was 22.
Right? That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so how big did you get this? And what you're doing is not scalable yet, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But you're cutting your teeth and learning all the sales, marketing, communication, and then the actual skills of working out and all that.
Yeah.
What happened next?
So this going out on the street continued. I started getting more clients. And parallelly, I was also trying to build out that Uber for fitness coaches. Now,
The app.
The app.
Interesting. And so was it for fitness clients or for coaches?
So
Basically, you shop them out.
The use case is if you want a workout right now, you'll be able to open my app and like call for it and like kind of like how.
And they come to you.
Yes. how urban company works
Yeah.
that was the game plan, and there's a lot of loopholes in that game plan when I look back at it in retrospect.
No, and it makes sense to me. I think, back 22, that must have been 2013, 14? 15. So, Geo hadn't come in.
Yes.
So cost per GB was too high. People had mobile phones, but their ready accession, WhatsApp was coming along. We faced this on some of our products too, in R&M and DWM and all that. And we were, until like 2017, when things exploded with low cost, high data sort of stuff, and also the ready acceptance of that, even more so in the pandemic, right? So what did you do next after that?
Started making a lot of money and cash from the training. Amassing cash in my house.
Wow.
Making more money than all.
And were you living with your parents at this point?
I was, but I had
So I have to ask you, what did your parents say?
I
can only imagine.
Yeah, no, okay, good question. I didn't tell them that I'm training people. I told them that I'm working on a startup.
Oh.
And I'm
Smart man.
I'm figuring out how to make money, which is
My
the
son,
truth.
the startup guy.
Yeah, exactly.
This is amazing.
What ended up happening is I started training someone who has been a long-term patient of my parents. And I didn't know that they're a patient.
Oh.
They got to know my last name and they called up my parents saying, your kid's become a trainer. Now, in an Indian household, which is full of doctors, when one kid suddenly takes up this alternative career, I think
that's death to Moochie there.
Fitness coaching is respected now. Back then, I don't think people even...
Somebody gonna get a hurt.
Yeah. So I got a bit of a pasting at home, but I told them to give me room for 2 years. I told them I'll be able to do something cool. Just hold on.
And they're educated.
Yes.
So they got it. If they weren't, I can't imagine this would have ended as well.
Yeah. But again, this is where my sister came in to support me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So she protected you.
Yeah.
Lovely.
You need an elder sister
Lovely.
in these kind of moments.
Yeah.
Who gets what you're doing. Because that's like a second mom who's almost your age.
100%.
So again, I owe so much of my mental health in that phase to her. Because of course, all this was very difficult on an internal level.
So tell me about that, because this is something everyone asks me, that, family and friends are so important for your mental health. And there's studies, we talked about it, where people die of loneliness, right? She was like one of those concrete blocks that stuck with you through thick and thin. And I have no hesitation saying that some of your success is her success.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Always.
And that way with the parents, it's hard sometimes breaking the code. Like, I finally gotten to the point after the kids graduated where I actually don't hit them up for what their grades are, what they're doing, and instead just ask them how their day was. And my wife schooled me on this early on. She's had a different life than I have. And so her manner of speaking, they're closer to her than me. But I get where you're coming with this, that you have to have someone in your life.
Yeah.
And it may be friends, it may be a family member, and it may be someone who is not related and not a friend and just a mentor, right? Like maybe some of your professors or other guys who, you worked with or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a takeaway point from what you're saying. So now you said, give me 2 years.
Yeah.
What happened next?
I was making money. I was reducing my consumption of substances parallelly.
Wow.
Because I realized that,
You didn't need to.
Yeah, there's this quote that says, every boy has a point in his life where he realizes that no one's coming to save him. And that's the point where he becomes a man.
I love that.
And the sad thing is that many boys don't even
And it's
reach
not
that
just
point.
boys, it's girls, it's people, right? That all of us face this kind of insecurity. And when you figure out that no one's coming, it's a moment of angst. And then you're like, either I'm going after it or I'm not.
The issue is many boys and girls don't reach that point and they remain boys and girls forever.
Wow.
So like you got to turn into men and women at some point.
And what does that mean to you when you became a man, so to say?
I think it's been a long-term journey through my 20s. Like I think I've made a lot of right choices in my 20s when I look back. And that's what's led to a comfortable 30s.
So would you say that the wrong choices led to the right choices? Think about that, right? I can tell you in my case, some of them did, some of them didn't. Some of them hurt me and some of them helped me, right? In realizing how rock bottom is.
Yeah, exactly. That's what the wrong choices do, and that's why they're important as well.
Yeah.
I don't know how that pans out through the rest of life, like because I'm sure there's going to be more wrong choices going forward,
100%.
like in the 30s and 40s.
And think about you and me that we both have safety nets.
Yeah.
For the people who don't, what do you say to them? How do they get this kind of safety net somewhere? Because India is not like the US or other places.
Yeah.
If you fail, you go to ground.
I really, really think that very early on in life, you've got to figure out not just how to multiply money, because I feel lots of people understand that today because of personal finance based education.
Yep.
Very few people teach others about how to make money. And it's all your soft skills that compound in to actually help you multiply.
And I would go one step further. Look for impact.
Yeah.
And that'll create money. Your impact was you training those people.
Yeah.
And in the process, look what happened.
You need to have some kind of value adding skills yourself.
Yes.
And no one, like even now where our country is getting so educated about finances and how to handle your own money, people are not taught enough about how to be better professionals.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Like there's a playbook to be a better professional.
And where do you get one of those?
I think, honestly, you don't get it in India right now. You get it possibly from mentors. Like you learn a different amount of things from different mentors, and then you have to accumulate your own set of learnings.
Yeah.
But this is a problem that should be solved for India.
So this is a great point, because in the olden days, it used to be journeyman apprenticeship, where you would learn your way up into a profession. And then it shifted to higher education, where you'd learn a set of skills, and whether those are applicable to real life or not is not the issue. A lot of the people I hired later had a lot of book skills, but their real world skills were lacking because they never had dwell time, right? My parents would always joke in the US, why is it such a long 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of med school, 5 years of general, 2 years? Why can't you just go from 16 to doctor? And I said, those 4 years, like your years, allowed me to mature, to kind of figure out in my own head what's important. And I think that's the story you're telling, and the soft skills and the career development and the skills development and this professional management, because I think you're so settled in your skin. I mean, you cannot be toppled. You may have insecurities, but you certainly don't show them. And the interesting part is that you are constantly pushing the envelope. I see that in you.
Mamba mentality.
Yeah. And that is something which is not taught. I think you learn it by experience. So now you finish the 2 years of internship in your dad's home, so to say, and you had a pile of cash lying around. What did you do? How did you invest it? And then how did you take it to the next level?
So the 2-year internship is broken up into 2 parts.
Okay.
The first is the first month or so where all these events happened, like going to that factory, starting training, figuring out, okay, this is the business I want to work on. While we were trying to scale up that business and figure out how to go about that, I ended up meeting someone who was a potential angel investor. And that man told me that...
was this Manish?
No.
Someone else.
This is someone who I'm actually not in touch with, and I don't even remember his name.
Wow.
All I remember is that he used to work...
He clearly changed you.
Yeah, he was a VP at Crizzle.
Okay.
Which is a data analytics.
Yes, I'm familiar.
And he was a smart, calm guy. Amongst all the people I was meeting, he was the one guy who said there's some spark in you and the work you're doing. So my advice to you is that learn to market yourself on YouTube and social media first, because there's lots of people trying to do this business, but no one's figured out how to market themselves.
Quite amazing that someone from Crizzle should be saying that, because it's quite the opposite sort of thing. Yeah. But that guy had an epiphany.
I wish I could meet that guy again in life.
Well, there you go. Yeah. He might be somewhere in the ether there.
Yeah. And I'm sure he's kept a track of the journey, because he seemed like one of those Yoda type figures, So he told me that, you need to figure out how to do social media and YouTube. And throughout my previous 4 years of college, I'd referenced a lot of American YouTube channels for their fitness gyan.
And so this is an interesting point, because I would say in the mid 2000s, right, 2005 and onwards, even before that to some degree. So YouTube's journey is very interesting. I'm sure you know about it and have read about it, but there were a couple of competitors and they almost went bust.
Yeah.
Because no one thought you could make money off of just content creation. Fast forward, Google buys them, right? And now they've monetized it. And now you have this whole rank of YouTube creators. And in the US, the CPMs are so high that these people are having very comfortable $1 million careers. In India, it's a little challenging because our CPMs are not as good, but I think you've done it very well, and we'll talk about that. But the bigger thing is telling the story and getting it to the last mile. And I think some of that journey was broken up by the TikTok short form, parade, which ended sadly with us blocking, because of political issues. But that was another learning moment for me, at least. And, I've been through this too, as I morphed into, the heart surgeon for 20 years, then into R&M and all the other stuff. Now you're telling me the same story from 2011 onwards, and you're kind of coming in where I came in, and you kind of took the bull by the horns in 2015, 16. Is that when you started your YouTube journey?
So the day he told me to do this, the next day I put up my first YouTube video.
Oh my God.
I was like, okay, if that's the path, let's move fast.
Okay.
Because I was too
And had you ever filmed before or done any of this?
Nothing. I caught a guy who lived near my house, childhood friend of mine. He was actually the drug dealer, the same drug dealer.
Nice.
Yeah.
That guy had a lot to teach you. Taught you on normal commerce, on how to get out of shady situations.
He just held a phone camera in front of me, and we just began recording.
And so that was the other thing. Everyone has a face camera now.
Yeah.
And the amount of stuff you can do, these are like supercomputing devices. What used to take up a room in the 60s and 70s is now in the pocket, the palm of your hand or in your pocket, right?
Yeah.
And so did you do most of your work on that?
He taught me the basics. I ended up, again,
This guy had YouTube skills too. Can you imagine that? A drug dealer with YouTube skills? That would be like crazy.
He's a videographer. Taught me what I needed to know, and eventually I was making money in cash from the training. So I ended up getting a tiny tripod.
Nice.
A decent-ish phone. I found an old blue bedsheet from some
As
old
your
cupboard.
background.
Yeah, and I put it up on my own cupboard.
Very cool.
So I was.
And what did you do for lighting and all that? Or you just use sunlight?
Sunlight.
Perfect.
You wake up early.
Which is actually the best.
Yeah. So you just got to figure out how to move your needle forward. What worked for me a lot was the fact that I was making money through fitness training.
Yeah.
So as I kept learning the YouTube skills.
So you had a day job and kind of a night job.
I split my day into two parts. So my day would be like, you wake up at like 7 in the morning, finish your workout by like 8:30, then shoot from 8:30 to about 1, 2, because I was doing it alone, and I trained my house help. I used to pay a little extra, and I said, shoot for me.
Wow.
At one point.
That's cool.
Between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. I would edit my own videos. 4 p.m. I would.
And you do this on a PC or on your phone?
Yeah, on like a laptop that I had at the time.
Okay.
Again, bought by my own money from the training.
Amazing.
4 p.m. I would head out to Andheri and Juhu to coach people. So I had a bunch of clients, and if ever one of the classes got cancelled, instead of like wasting time, I would go to Juhu Beach, catch people who are jogging there, and tell them to subscribe to my channel.
Oh, wow. So you were using the same sales techniques to bring other people in. And what were you filming initially? What was your kind of focus or thesis?
It was just fitness-based content and cooking. Because I mean,
so,
fitness.
So that's why we get along, right?
Yeah.
Both of those are top on my list too.
I mean, even at this point, like those videos mean a lot to me because I know the kind of effort that went into it. Because I'd come back to my house at like 12, 1 in the morning.
12 and 1 after you trained?
Yeah,
or?
After I trained people.
Got it.
And I'd continue editing from 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. And then wake up at like 7:38.
So there's a job that your vocation and your avocation are the same. Your passion, your job, your work is the same, and you love what you're doing now.
But also, I mean, the trade-off was a lack of mental health, lack of sleep.
So tell me about that.
very difficult phase. I think that's been probably the most like psychologically challenging phase in.
Were there doubts?
Yeah, a lot of self-doubt. I think self-doubt is something that only went away when I moved into my own house, where you've been like,
Your lovely house with the sea views and all the other stuff.
Which
Gorgeous
is like
place.
3 years ago, and it's been a 9-year journey. So 6 years were like, I think the driving force was self-doubt. Just trying, again, the mama mentality is an outcome of.
I think that humility is a good thing because it forces you to reckon. And people give up sometimes along the way because there's a lot of naysayers.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that? This is a great question, even on your channels. I'll ask you later, but trolls, naysayers, there's so many people trying to bring you down, and you just have to breathe positivity through everything you do, and you do it. So how do you contend that? How do you contend?
You have to fake it till you make it.
Okay.
Like, honestly, I feel like I'm still the same guy. And even at that point, in my own head, though there was self-doubt, I was the version of me that I am right now, 9 years in.
Yeah.
Like, I
Which
felt
is
like,
not easy.
Yeah, I was
People let it go to their head.
Yeah.
And you are unaffected. I've heard this not just from you, but from Ritesh, from a lot of my friends, that this guy is the real deal because he's not let his head grow.
Yeah. I have a mentor called Zakir Khan, and I'd asked him this question a few years ago. I asked him that after so much growth, how are you still humble? He's like, I'm not humble. I'm just as arrogant now as I was back then. And that's actually how I look at it.
So you are what you are when you started.
I hope I am.
So those skill sets you brought to the game are what you're going to take forward. Hopefully, right?
I hope
God
so,
forbid that, something crazy doesn't happen. You win the lottery ticket and then all of a sudden you don't want to do this.
I think it's very important to be self-aware. The thing is, this is going to get a little bit about ethnicities in India. My dad's Punjabi. Okay, and there's a bunch of blessings that come along with being Punjabi, which is that you're friendly, you're people's person, all that.
Yeah.
The disadvantage is that a sense of arrogance runs in your blood. It's there. So it comes from a place of self-confidence as well.
Yeah.
So it's something I've had to wrestle with over the years. I don't
necessarily see that in you. Maybe it's you suppress that gene as much as you can.
It's a constant effort to like not keep yes men and yes women around you. Like tell your loved ones that if you ever feel something's going wrong, tell me. Tell your co-founders to keep you in check. So my angle with all my loved ones and my co-founders is you have to always tell me if you're feeling like I'm getting arrogant. And honestly, sir, this YouTube life is so intoxicating, like in its own way, that I feel it's very easy to become arrogant. And I see that happening with so many content creators, not really in the YouTube space, because YouTube takes a lot of human effort to move forward. But on Instagram, on Twitter, I feel when people amass a certain number of followers, what ends up happening is you get a lot of free travel, you make a lot of money, you get access to fame, there's too much dopamine involved. And that's also the reason that they say that the average Instagram career is about 3 years long.
And I think, wouldn't you say that some of it is like winning the lottery? There's a lot of data on that lottery winners don't end well.
Yeah.
Because they don't know how to manage their money. They kind of get influenced and approached by the wrong people. And the friends they have are not real always. I think in that case, you've already gone down that road. You have a very solid family base, a very strong mentor in your sister, mentor, friend, confidant, and also Zakir and some of the others around you, all of us, right? And so I think it's a company you keep too. And, I talked to my wife about this because you can imagine after 35, 40 years, how she stays grounded. And she won't even let us watch her stuff in the house. That's how bad it is, because she's not that person, right? And so I learned from that, and it is a high. It is a high to see something look good. I can't monetize my stuff because I'm a physician and I have a license, and people have said, get rid of your license, I'm like, I worked so hard my whole life taking care of people, and that wasn't my mission. I'll make my money other ways and not compromise, right? No conflict. But it is tempting watching you guys and watching other people commercialize stuff. Having said that, I love what you're saying and how you're drawing it out. And I'm a huge fan, you know that. But I think the biggest thing is, how do you stay grounded and normal in your book? I mean, you're 9 years in now. Yeah. You've bought a big old beach house and you're still the hippie, right? You're still the guy who doesn't care about all the toys. You're like me, right? Wearing my plaid shirts. I mean, I'm like dressed in this thing once every 2 years or something like that. Now a little more often, but I would much prefer being in my Spider-Man t-shirt and in my jeans, and that too, the jeans which are grounded to pulp and really thin and showing off my backside, not because I'm fashionable, but because I'm too cheap and too, lazy to go and buy new ones. But how do you do that?
Honestly, I feel there's a long way to go still. And I'm not like, I'm probably only like 10% through.
So now tell me something. You made a transition because you started out with all sports and cooking. When did that aha moment come as to what you wanted to cover? And so we talked a little bit about mental health, the trolls, we'll get to that. Yeah. But when did the aha moment come, and how did you redirect your flow? And what was it some mentors who came in and looked at your strategy and said, you know what? I think you need to rename yourself BeerBiceps, and you need to do more comedy, and you need to do this. Or did you just watch enough YouTube and kind of learn on the go?
So I trained people for a year and a half after this phase began, which is almost right after
training college. Sports, not YouTube.
Like weight training.
Okay, got it.
I would go to their houses.
Got
go to their local gyms.
So the first year and a half, you still had a cash flow business.
Yeah. And these are all very rich people. And I think one becomes rich because of a certain kind of skill set. So a lot rubbed off in terms of
so you learned
things at scale.
Yeah.
Also, the YouTube channel was growing fairly rapidly for that point.
And this was when? 16, 17?
2015 and 2016.
Wow. Okay.
So I realized...
And was it the same name all through?
Yeah, it was BeerBiceps like right from
and
the
how
start.
Did that start? What's the deal with that name?
I mean, when you want to like break out in terms of people remembering you, you have to be a little weird. That's been a rule.
But I thought maybe this is something that college days where you were lifting weight with your beer cans.
Beer was my
go-to drug.
Yeah, at that point.
Yeah.
So I wanted to promote the idea that you can party and be fit at the same time. That was the gimmick I took up for my channel.
Love it.
It's balanced fitness rather than being obsessive.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I don't drink. I've not drank for the last 6-7 years.
Yeah.
I've toyed with like dropping that name, but it's become so...
I mean, we talked about this. I'm vegan and a teetotaler now.
Yeah.
And, your journey and mine are sort of echoes and mirror images. The interesting part is the drinking. Why did you stop that?
At some point, I just got very deep into like meditation and a kind of yoga called Kriya Yoga. Mm-hmm. In the same way that high protein diets help with building muscle after you go for your weight training sessions. When you go into like this hyper sattvic diet, which technically you're in as well.
I am. It's vegan. Yeah. It's low.
Yeah.
Everything that you don't need or do need, and anything that you don't need is out.
Yeah. It's very, very conducive for deepening your meditative state. So at one point, I really deep dived into meditation and yoga and all these things. This is back in 2018. And I'm still in that phase of my life. So this
was 3 years after the channel started.
Yes.
So you met some success.
I was mentored by Tanmay Bhatt, who had founded AIB. Because he was one of my clients. He was trying to lose
fabulous.
weight.
Yeah, he's fabulous and a good guy.
Yeah.
I'd met him in R&M days, and we were looking at maybe doing stuff together with DWM and stuff. Very good guy.
I would go to his house. He was actually my last client of the day. He was the reason I would come back at 12 a.m. or 1 a.m.
So you were actually building a network through your workouts at the same time as kind of taking that and learning on the side. Yes. Almost like there was Hrithik, right? So Hrithik was a spot boy on one of his father's films with my wife. And she would always see him in the back just watching and learning. And it's almost the same with what you had as you were training these people. You were a sponge and you were taking in. And I've been that way. There's sometimes when you're teaching and sometimes when you're learning. And, moot ban karo, kan suno, and the bottom line is there's so much to take in if you're humble enough to accept that. But for you were learning from this guy with AIB, and they were doing some phenomenal, funny work, right? And that was the time for short form and medium form content going viral, right? That was the big thing, going viral. And we had enough in India finally, where your GBs were cheap enough and people had phones where you could actually watch it, not just in the first tier, but second, third, and fourth tier. And this is where you came in. And so 2015, 16, 17, you built it. And then you took a little bit of a turn. So you learned all your skills. How did that go? And then the second part of the question is, you started meditating. Why? What all of a sudden compelled you to change?
So the first question about like what was happening in that phase. Tanmay basically told me that, influencer marketing as a concept is going to come to India. So you better focus on the YouTube channel even more. So I gave up on the trainer's dream and I put all my power into
treating that was ballsy because you had no cash flow. That was your cash flow job, right?
Yeah.
And when you went from a day job and a night job to just the night job being your day job.
You see a little bump down, but again, the engineer in me...
You had enough guts. So the engineering actually helped there.
Yeah. You end up mapping out your runway. So I had a runway of about 6 months. And the worst case scenario was that if I didn't...
so you were in startup mode, basically.
Yeah. My first hire was my actual camera person, who's still my creative head today.
Did I meet him when I came to you?
No.
Okay.
He was in our office. His name's Rajas. And like, we began with me giving him 200 rupees just for his transportation in the first month.
Wow.
And I remember his first actual salary was like 7,000 rupees.
And where did he come from?
Just through a friend I ended up meeting. There is a
second tier, first tier? Was this still the...
This is like 6 months into the journey. Just ended up meeting him. He is the only out and out Mumbai boy who's like ended up working with me. But this was like a channel run by like two guys trying to scale it up. Some point I stopped training people because I realized that more than half my day is going into this, even though the money was fantastic.
Yeah.
We were growing YouTube parallelly. So at one point, the YouTube channel was paying me about 30,000 rupees a month, which was enough to sustain myself.
Amazing.
For at least...
And you were living with your folks at this point?
Yes.
Wow.
And paying for my own
stuff. Were they taking
stuff.
PG? Were they taking rent?
They were... they didn't take rent from me, but they didn't provide food or anything. So
you had to make your... Wow, that's interesting.
So there was a certain level of... there was independence, but my parents had this whole angle of, listen, stay with the family as long as you can. There's that emotional
And was
angle.
that for them or for you?
I think it was for them. Because they didn't like it when I moved out. When I did move out eventually.
Got it.
Very Indian thing. But we were growing it organically. And I think quitting training seemed like a wrong decision to a lot of my friends at that point. But in retrospect, obviously, it's been one of the best decisions. Because again, the business angle in me, like once you've tasted cash and that kind of a cash flow, you want to figure out how to make more money. So I ended up going to my engineering college for like a seminar. I was giving like a motivational talk. This is like barely 2 years into the journey.
YouTube journey. And by this time, how many followers did you have or subscribers?
Little less than 100,000.
Wow. Yeah. So you got your first button.
Right? Yeah, a little bit before that.
Okay.
I can't remember whether it was 50K or 100K, but it was somewhere in that range.
Okay.
I met a junior of mine from engineering college, and me and him had made a little amount of money while we were in college working on selling courses and selling other seminars.
So you were always a stone cold hustler.
There was some angle of money,
Yeah.
Like I think there's a certain amount. Again, I'm a hunter for dopamine.
Yeah.
So once you figure out that dopamine is an outcome of money as well, you start chasing the money. So I went to him, said that, the same thing that we did in college, it was basically sales skills. I think with what I'm sitting on right now, influencer marketing is going to hit this country, and you'll be able to sell my rights to brands in exchange for money. So he started cold calling brands, and we ended up cracking a few deals. And then eventually a lot of my YouTuber friends, they noticed that these guys have figured out influencer marketing in India. And that time, no one did influencer marketing. We were probably one of the first people to ever do it.
This was when, 18?
17 maybe.
Oh, interesting.
Can't remember, 17.
Because in the US, it was big.
Yeah.
And people were making millions.
Yeah. I think this rule doesn't apply now, but back then it was said that anything that happens in America happens in India 5 years later.
Interesting.
So we were anticipating that it will definitely happen. It was just a matter of when. My YouTuber friends noticed that these guys are making some amount of money. So it kind of, this whole process forced me and that junior of mine from college to start our own talent management company.
And just so we're clear, it's really the influencer money from sponsors and brands that pays your bills, not really the views. The views to a lesser degree.
At this point, because
you're so
been
big.
doing it for a while.
Yeah, and you have like 9 channels or something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, in the last 2-3 years, the YouTube income has really gone up. Also because we have a bit of an international audience, NRIs and all that.
So that's the other thing you and I talked about. The CPMs for the West are much higher than what they are for here. For all you guys to understand that, the cost per mil or whatever.
Yeah.
And
it basically means how much money you're getting per view.
Yeah.
On YouTube.
Yeah,
so if your audience is primarily in India, the CPM is lower because each view is worth a little lesser money. But if it's in America or Australia or Canada, if your views are coming from there,
It's a side question for me, but you have a Hindi speaking channel and an English. It would seem to me that in India, Hindi would be much bigger.
Yeah, currently our Hindi views are 8 times that of English.
But with the CPM difference, which one makes more?
They make the same.
Is that crazy or what?
Again, I can go on about the Hindi audience versus the English audience for like an hour.
Yeah.
But
I think it'll change because I think India is becoming one of the central focuses on a planetary scale.
Yeah.
And the amount of made in India for India is going up. And it's a small unit economics, large volume multiplier. Yeah. So everyone wants to be here. I can tell you that because the kinds of people I'm talking to from the West, they all want a ticket gate pass here. And no one has the keys to the kingdom except for, all of us. Yeah. And so it's been an interesting journey. So I see this evolving, this equation.
I hope so. I mean, the way I'm looking at it, so with YouTube income, like the money you actually make off of Google AdSense, the views you get through YouTube, it's very up and down. So
yes.
we
depending on their algorithm, or
it depends on the time of the year. It depends on how your channel has performed.
Like if it's cricket time, maybe that's going to be sucking everyone's attention.
So over time, I've learned to become extremely detached from that stream of income because it can surprise you in a positive way in some months and it'll shock you in some months.
So you can't count on it.
But you can average it out. And all my salaries, like currently just at BeerBiceps, so we run 3 parallel businesses as well. But just on BeerBiceps, we have about 80 people because it takes a machinery to run.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So all my salaries, my rent, my fixed costs come out of my YouTube income.
Very interesting.
I've averaged it out based on how much we make throughout the year. It basically needs me to upload a certain number of videos every month. And then I can guarantee.
And what's that critical number for you?
It's 4 a week.
4 a week.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot of content.
Yeah. But I'm also.
But do you cut the same from the same? Because I know how diligent and deep you go into a video. And I know how, ridiculously meticulous you are on how you kind of put it together. So, I mean, I'm thinking they're taking it from previous videos, this video, all that. Is that how it works?
You're talking about the income?
No. I'm saying the 4 videos per week is a lot.
No. It's fresh videos.
My God.
Yeah.
So you must have a real backlog of content.
If a backlog is less than 16 videos, which is 4 weeks ahead of us, the whole organization is on red alert. So right now we have about 45.
And
46.
this is your full-time sort of thing. You don't train anymore. You don't do anything anymore. Do you sleep anymore? I mean, that's the other question.
No, I focus a lot on my routines and my health. I've realized the value of that. And I think a very underrated skill in YouTubing is actually physical health. Like people don't talk about it, but you need
Tell me about that. What is that for you?
So, I mean, recording and releasing 4 videos a week.
That's a lot of work. I know. I do some of that. And I film 7 videos in a day.
Yeah.
And I do it once to twice a month. So I'm like a part-timer compared to you. I can only imagine with you how much work goes in with 80 people.
Yeah.
So how do you manage your life? How do you make sure your diets are on cue, your sleep is on cue, your routine? You must have handlers and other people, right?
So I mean, with sleep, I ensure I need to get either 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and if I don't, I have to meditate more intensely the following morning because
How much do you meditate a day?
I always target an hour minimum.
Hour.
Yeah, it should
And
be two.
morning, evening, before you
Both.
eat? Okay.
So both cumulatively should be an hour
And this
at
is
least.
transcendental. You're trying to get into a
So in the
calm state.
yeah, in the morning I do a version like there's a technique called the Soham or Hong Saw technique. It's a prequel to Kriya Yoga, which is a deeper technique which have not been initiated in. You can't just take it up. It's like martial arts. There's
Interesting.
different degrees, and that's why I've stuck to meditation as well because I've realized it's martial arts for the mind. More on that later.
Yeah.
And in the evening, I have a bunch of different like techniques that I've put together to make a routine. It's like how you go to the gym and you'll do biceps, back, whatever. So there's a bunch of meditations I've put together in
Got
the
it.
evening.
So you're doing physical exercise as well as mental exercise. I think that's amazing.
And I try. So again, this is for the sake of fat loss. So if I'm in a fat loss phase, over time I've just learned that what works best for me is HIIT if I want to burn off fat. So it's usually like about a 45-minute to an hour-long strength training session 4 times a week.
High intensity. So what is HIIT so our audience knows?
High intensity interval training.
Right.
So basically, it's a 15 to 20-minute workout where you focus on really explosive movements or sprints.
So your heart's going 0 to 60
Yes.
again and again and again and again
Yes.
over a 2-minute spread. So 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, and then a rest, maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds in between.
The beautiful thing is the fat burns off like magic.
Yeah.
Like it's just it's crazy what an HIIT
And what do
can
you do? I don't know. In my life, it seems that 80%, and most people's 80% is diet. So what do you do for diet now?
Again, over time, so I think everyone's bodies are different, and you have to figure out what works for you. And I've tried every possible dietary protocol. At this stage, my diet is very centric to my meditation practice. So it's honestly really sattvic, boring food. So I'll have like.
Can't be any different than mine right now. I'm a vegan
I mean,
teetotaler. Right?
I'll give out my diet right now.
Yeah.
And this is not optimum for muscle building, but
Yeah.
it's optimum for where I am in life, where I just want to maintain myself, look decent on screen.
Yeah.
Take care of my skin, hair, all that.
Yep.
Begin with like some soaked nuts and fruit in the morning. Half an hour after that, I'll have like a protein shake. Half an hour after that, I'll have a lot of raw veggies. Take about an hour-long, 2-hour-long break. Then I have like a portion of legumes, which I've just boiled or steamed. And I'll keep changing up the legume every day. I might have a little fruit around that. I'll take a bit of a break. Then I'll go for my workout, finish my workout, and then I have like on alternate days I have either paneer or tofu.
Very
Like
nice.
it's
So
one of
very
these.
light, certainly veg. And it looks like a combination of frequent small meals.
Yes, Bruce Lee.
Yeah. And in addition to that, some form of protein.
Yes.
And you're not necessarily counting your calories or counting your protein inputs.
So if
you?
if I'm feeling really hungry on a particular, if I had a very heavy workout or like a football game, I'll have another portion of protein. Like that'll, if I've had paneer, the second one will be tofu and vice versa.
And do you do any feedback loops, meaning laboratory or doctor or anything?
Yeah, I end up getting my blood report done every year.
Okay.
So nothing's
So you do
bad
like a
as
little
of
executive
now.
physical.
Yeah.
I mean, you're 31. Come
Yeah.
on. It's like how much can be, but and you've given up drinking.
There's no
for
drinking.
7 years or something
Yeah.
like that, right?
No smoking.
What was the deal? You just figured out your code, and as you did more meditation, that mentor kind of led you to the fact that I don't need this. I can get high in my own mind by just meditating. Is that
So
about
I think
right?
the judo from the childhood, like it kind of.
Discipline.
Yeah, I mean, that martial artist is always there within you. You'll approach life with a martial arts perspective.
And you no longer need the self-soothing, like the kid sucking their thumb, which was the drugs and the alcohol.
Yeah.
And so you found your own sort of purpose. And so this is very interesting to me.
I mean, I genuinely have come to realize that meditation is martial arts for the mind. And if you're a real martial artist, your whole life is centered around the art form. So, especially if you want to make it a central aspect of your life.
And the interesting part, that's so different than people who do it to just stay in shape or for self-defense,
Yeah.
right? I've done my share of karate, taekwondo, fought in tournaments, done all of that. And for me, it was a way to stay in shape. I think I mentioned to you that the hardest parts as you get older are staying flexible, staying ripped up. And I had to shift from my team and individual sports like tennis, cross country, football, every other sport I did, because I was getting into injuries. And I flipped over to the gym and I started building. And, the conversation we had earlier today, my wife's like, this is the best I've ever seen you since we've been married. That was a compliment yesterday. I was like, thank you. I love you. Yes, I do. But the funny part was, it's not an easy thing. So like, what you're saying with the drinking part, socially, how does it work for you? How often are you going out with this schedule?
I honestly feel that if I wasn't famous, like it would have been difficult socially.
Interesting.
Like, I think,
so they cut you a little slack
fame
and say,
gives you that ticket. Fame or personality, one of the two. And fortunately, I'm blessed now.
You got both, right?
So, you just need to know how to hold a conversation. In fact, people like you being the sober, funny guy in the room.
Yeah.
So there is a charm in that.
So this is a great point, because I don't know how it is for you, but telling a crowd that you're vegan and a teetotaler, all of a sudden they don't want to invite you to their parties.
Right.
And then they realize it's the same person that they were with. And lately it seems like they're bending over backwards to find me vegan snacks. I'm like, you guys, it's just veg with no dairy. It's not a big deal. And if it's a big problem, I'll eat before I come.
Yeah.
They're like, no, it's like one of my best friends, Sanjeev Kapoor, is a master chef. I said, Sanjeev, don't ever worry about me. I'm doing this for myself and I don't want to hinder any, because he had a nice dinner party for all of us. And he's an amazing cook, obviously. And he was so kind, and he obviously has seen everything, and he created a spread which was crazy. And like, kali dal makhni, he created a vegan version of that, because otherwise they like plow it for 12 hours with ghee and cream. And it's like masterful. And he created one for me, and he had all these vegan things. And I'm like, you didn't need to do that. He's like, bro, this is what I do for my people. And so what I found in India, at least, is we are such a progressive culture that you can live and be appreciated and be accepted, because it's not just one India, right? It's 28 states, 8 union territories, but comprising 300 religions, 800 languages, and so many cultures. And it's so beautiful. And so for me, the journey, like you, has been very interesting in that I'm trying this, that, and the other. And it sounds like you've done the same, and you've sort of evolved in that probably 10-year period to where you are now. Tell me, from here, you've got 9 channels. You are now, are you still doing judo, by the way?
No. Unfortunately, no, but I will go back.
Do you want to go back?
Yeah, in my heart, definitely. I want to get that black belt, because that's
congrats. Yeah.
remaining.
So I know a ton of people, and I would love to connect the dots. I'm sure you know the same people.
Kawas Bellamoria?
No, Savio Barnes?
Yeah.
So Savio, and then there's a guy who trained him, who's one of the people who brought judo to India. And then there's all the other people. But it's not just them. I think martial arts in India have been there for a long time. We're close enough to China and the proximity, as well as Japan and whatnot. And so I agree with you in that I did martial arts for the discipline. I mean, half of your workout was getting ready to learn the forms and to do the other stuff. But it wasn't about beating on people. It was about using the energy.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you find as well.
I mean, there's so many aspects to this. Like, if we want to explain it to someone who's not done martial arts, you can just say it makes you more disciplined. But if you've got the right sensei, like the right coach, they will explain the spiritual and mental angle.
It's like a life coach, basically.
There's so much you learn. Like, because, I mean, when you're a kid and you're thrown into a match, you're supposed to take out another kid through your body. Your body becomes a weapon. And that is such a primal evolutionary process for that child. Because if you don't attack, your opponent's going to attack. You kind of learn the truth about life as well.
That's a great one. I was thinking the same exact idea. And so it puts you on an edge where you can go either way. But at the same time, the amount of respect, like our sensei would always say that the best fight is the one you run away from. Because using your skills, you can outrun a bullet.
Yeah.
You will win more battles by not fighting. Maybe the world needs to learn some of that as well. Because when you have absolute power and you use none of it, you're the winner.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's the other thing it taught me, that I did it for many reasons, and you did too.